What's up, Weekend Warriors? It's week 12 edition of the podcast. Out on the road today. Not going to have time to do it later tonight, so figured take a little bit of time here at lunch to give my guys a podcast. We're dedicated here, and the commissioner wants to. It's just a big week here, so I want to make sure I put something out there for my league here to digest. So, hey, last week, a loss for me. Kevin, congratulations. I picked myself to win, kind of knowing that I really didn't have a great shot. Kevin had a combination of really good matchups and me having some poor matchups, and also having some guys on bye. The Turnersville Sportsbook went 2-3 on the week, down week for the Sportsbook. 36-19 on the year, very, very good. And 1-0 with my NFL picks. Picked the Thursday night game last week, so stick around. You might get another pick this week. The Browns did it for me last week. So if I get 10-0, maybe I'll go viral. I say that there's a very good possibility I go 1-1. It's a tough game tonight, but I got a decent feeling on it. It is crowded at the top of the standings. Every team in the league separated by 3 games in the win column at most. It's a pretty tight spread. For the first time in the last 4 or 5 weeks, I think it's 5 weeks, I can say that the Harding brothers are not at the top of the standings. Jake is still in first, but there is Zach in between us now. I have dropped to third place. We're all 7-4, the 3 of us, but unfortunately, Zach has some more points than me. So then you have 2 teams at 6-5. Obviously, Kev's team on the rise. Sorry for the league, couldn't beat him last week. And Pearson with a huge win over Terry. Going into Sunday night, didn't look good for him. Gurley kind of turned it around, and now we have a huge matchup this week between Balls Deep and Straight Cash Homie. Terry and Brett not out of it at 5-6. Need to run the table. I think last week I said Brett's probably going to fade. Terry could have a chance to rise. I still feel that way. But huge weeks this week for both of those teams. So I'm going to jump into the matchups. We got some good ones this week. Playoff implications at an all-time high. Have to say that, having the extra week in our league, most leagues stop at the week 13. Week 14 is the first week of the playoffs. 2 teams get by. Us being a 10-team league, obviously only 4 teams make the playoffs. It just makes the regular season that much more enjoyable. So let's jump into it. I'm going to start with Optimistic Bearded Parrot versus Zach. The bad breaks keep coming for Chris. Robert Woods unexpectedly out Sunday night. Don't think it mattered that he scored 62.5 points. I think Ott beat him by 100. It was a shellacking. I saw it coming. I said, last week, Ott lost 7 in a row. He's going to bounce back. Unfortunately for Chris, just hasn't been his year. He is playing for spoiler role right now. Still has Saquon Barkley, Mike Evans, and Patrick Mahomes is on bye this week, but he does have Jameis Winston. So he has some players that can put up some firepower, but he also has a lot of players that can put up some dud performances. So without Mahomes, he's definitely the underdog this week. Still needs to make some pickups here to solidify his lineup with his defense and kicker on bye. I know Chris, he's definitely no stranger to the spoiler role, so he will embrace it very well. Had high hopes for him this year, but I don't think he's going to be able to make it, unfortunately. So, but can he beat Zach this week? Lamar Jackson is just a cheat code. He's just helping his team out every week so much. DJ Chark, what a pickup earlier this year, and he's 100 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Devontae Parker, all of a sudden, with Fitzpatrick at the helm, has been so good for him. He gets Aaron Jones off a bye. He's, I think, tied or second in the league in touchdowns. So definitely somebody that you can play every week and has been a big part of his success. James Conner's questionable, probably not going to play. Zach does have some options on his bench. Sony Michel hasn't been great, but as a running back to fill in, definitely capable. Look, I'd be a fool here to pick Chris in this week. I'm going to go with Zach. Me, Jake, Terry, Pearson, Brett, we would appreciate if you beat Zach. But I just think that Long Johnson is going to win here in Week 12. Moving on to the next matchup, another huge matchup. It's in the runnings for matchup of the week consideration for sure. I think it's probably going to be the runner-up. Jake versus Terry. thought this week was going to be the matchup of the week until Terry lost last week. Terry's kind of on life support, and the fact that if he loses this game, he's probably out. Jake every week has been texting me and saying, hey, I don't like my team. Eckler stinks now. All of a sudden, he had a good game last week. But, he's his running back. He's got Bo Scarborough here in at flex, and Darius Geis. He's kind of deciding between those two. He's got these slew of wide receiver threes, he says. But, hey, look, Gallup put up 100 yards last week. He's been more than wide receiver 3. Sutton, even in a tough matchup against Minnesota, made great catches to sustain fantasy value. So, and he's got Allen Robinson, I think, and Jarvis Landry's been finding the end zone. So the combination of these guys has been enough for him. And if really you're only weak at flex and you got Christian McCaffrey in your lineup, and Fournette, and Matt Ryan, despite Atlanta's struggles, has just been a really good fantasy asset. I like Jake's team. I think he's too hard on himself. He's projected 127 points this week. Flip the script to Terry. Cooper Kupp hasn't been the same guy the last 4 weeks. He goose-egged, then he came out last week, dropped the ball at the 1-yard line. I think he finished with about 57 yards. He had a 50-yard catch. So, Zeke, I still hold out that I think Zeke, even though he's still a top 5 guy, he hasn't really been that guy for Terry this year when he got him in a trade from Kevin. He is the 5th-ranked running back on the year. He's in New England this week. You could find better matchups than that. Obviously, you're going to play Zeke, but can you count on him to give you big points? You probably can count on Nick Chubb to give you big points against Miami, and that's going to be one of the wild cards here. Him and Derek Carr versus the Jets. Carr's been good. I think it's a plus matchup. He's relying on him with Kyler Murray on bye. We'll see what happens. So he's also got Kareem Hunt in his lineup. He might go dual running back, Cleveland Browns versus the Dolphins. Maybe the Chubb will run one in. Maybe Hunt will catch one. That would be good for me. So let's see what happens. But another guy has got Hunter Henry on bye. He's been a big asset to his team. I'm sure he's going to scoop up a tight end here. There's a lot of cast of characters that can be picked up. So, look, I like Jake in this matchup. Terry's other 2 wide receivers are Will Fuller and Alshon Jeffrey, both questionable. Good pickup of Alshon, I think, but the Eagles' passing offense relies on him. Is he healthy? Is he even going to play this week? So ESPN gives Jake a 61% probability of winning. He's projected to win 127-106. I concur. I think Jake wins and stays near or at the top of the standings. Moving on to Rent-Free in PP's Head. That's a new nickname from Kev. Kev's never had a team name that doesn't reference a person in the league. So, hey, I like it better because it's not Tyler's a fraud. Didn't really get that one anyway. But name change. Big win last week. Brett, 5-6, clinging to his life here. Has good players this week, especially with the matchup that he has. Russell Wilson at Philly. Philly's pass defense has been better, but it's still Russell Wilson. We all know what he can do. Le'Veon Bell at home against Oakland. Is this the week? We've been saying it for a little bit. He's had some matchups against Miami. He scored last week. I think Le'Veon Bell scores again. I think the Jets could potentially win that game. Oakland is good, but last week only beat Cincinnati by 7. I like Le'Veon Bell this week. Got Derrick Henry back. A little bit of a tough matchup against Jacksonville. Derrick Henry's been phenomenal. Odell Beckham Jr. at home against Miami. Or is it in Miami? Actually, no, it's in Cleveland. So, I got Baker Mayfield. Baker's been better. Beckham had a touchdown last week, called back at the 1-yard line. I think that Beckham will have a good week and should give should give Brett a big boost. He does have Josh Gordon. That's a questionable start, but looking at his options between Auden Tate, who's concussed, and AJ Green, who's dead, hopefully Josh Gordon might get some more run here, and he should be able to mismatch the Eagles secondary. So, like Brett's matchups this week, Kevin is without Melvin Gordon. He has Josh Jacobs, who's been phenomenal. He's also starting Carson Wentz. Had a bad week last week. Obviously playing New England. Should bounce back this week in a pretty high-scoring game with Seattle. I'm not going to say this every week, but Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas, Julian Edelman. This week he's got Dede in his lineup with Tyreek on bye. He's also banged up. So, Brett, you might be catching him at a good week. I'm going out on a limb. I think Kevin's team's on the rise. I picked him to lose last week. He told me it was a mistake. I think Brett is going to pull the upset. ESPN says Kev's supposed to win by less than 4 points. If there's a week, this is the week. Kev and Brett will have the same record after this week, and it make the playoffs positioning that much more interesting. Kev has a good team. He's on the rise. He thinks he should definitely make the playoffs. It's a tight league. He's going to have to work for it. I think he can still make it. I think Brett beats him this week. Shocker alert. Eating W's. If I could do it like James, I would, but... All right, moving on. Dean versus Otley. Maybe should have done this matchup in the beginning now that I see they're both 4-7. Dean has just had a really rough year. Some of his draft picks of Rodgers has been disappointing. Mixon's been disappointing. He barely fielded a roster last week. Still almost somehow won by some stroke of God, but Brett was able to pull it out. Look, Darius Slayton's been good. He's got a tough matchup against Chicago. He's got Lockett and Metcalf. He's really relying on those Seattle wide receivers. It really comes down to it. Can Aaron Rodgers do it for him? And can Joe Mixon keep doing what he's doing with not being very productive, but just getting a lot of volume and being able to find the end zone? Flip the script to Otley. Kind of the story all year for Ott. Yeah, he started 3-0, lost 7 in a row, back in the win column. He's streaky. I think he continues that win streak this week. His team's better than his record. He has a lot of points against. He's got Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, very good running backs. Kind of rotating in at quarterback this week. He's going with Jacoby Brissett. I think that's a good start. Calvin Ridley now. Julio's been banged up. Atlanta's shipped, no Hooper. I think that he has potential. Obviously, with Sanu gone, he's a big focal point of this offense. So, look, I like Otley in this matchup. Dean is kind of back to the drawing board, and he changed his name to, let's see what it is. I Can't Find My Johnson, and he also sent me a picture of the Titanic sinking last week. Morale is down in the Johnson camp right now. I'm going to take Otley to kind of get back up to the middle of the pack and make it a respectable season. And look, matchup of the week. I think I've been in the matchup of the week the last couple weeks, but say it's biased, say it's not. This is a huge matchup. It's a rivalry game, me versus Pearson. I got the better of him earlier in the year thanks to Evan Ingram on a long touchdown. Probably not going to have Evan Ingram this week, so Pearson doesn't have to worry about that. Pearson and I both maybe better records for what our teams performance-wise, points-wise have been on the year. He's been relying on New England's defense. I've been relying on Dalvin Cook, who I don't have this week. So he's catching me at a good time. Todd Gurley now on the upswing for Pearson. DeAndre Hopkins hasn't been great. I think he has a big week this week against Indy. He had 100 and a touch last time he played him. Indy just let up 102 touchdowns to Chark. I think DeAndre Hopkins has a big week. DJ Moore's been great. If you read the news on him, Matthew Berry says he's a top 12 guy. Maybe I should be happy about that. He's my rival. He's Ott's rival. But look, it's going to come down to a couple things. George Kittle, hope he doesn't play. Big loss for Pearson over the last couple weeks. So if he's without him, he has Jared Cook. He has a connection there with Breeze. That's a good backup, but definitely hope not to see Kittle in the lineup. For me, relying on Baker Mayfield. I've had a revolving door at quarterback. Garoppolo last week against Arizona, I'm playing the matchups. I know he had 4 touchdowns, but got Baker this week against Miami. He's been better. Hope he connects with the Jarvis of the world, the Beckhams of the world here. Maybe Njoku back. Some weapons for him, especially with Kareem Hunt. Chris Carson at Philly, not a great matchup. He's my running back 1 with Cook out, and relying on Singletary and Montgomery. Montgomery, God, he's such a wild card, but he's got a good matchup this week. And got to hope, the other thing with Kittle is I have Deebo Samuel. Emmanuel Sanders probably not going to play. If you're Pearson, do you play him? He's been banged up, but Deebo will reap the benefits. And one guy, Devontae Adams, no touchdowns on the year. Last year, he was a touchdown machine. Please, by some stroke, get in the end zone this week. Maybe he'll have 2. Start to get that number back up. I'm going to say that he's the difference maker this week. I'm picking myself. The league says 56% chance for Pearson. I think Baker Mayfield outperforms his projection. I think Driscoll gets Golladay the ball, even though, there's no Stafford. It's Washington. They stink. So Pearson, you're going down. I'm knocking you down a peg and trying to solidify my playoff spot, straight cash homie in week 12. Thanks for staying for 15 minutes. My big NFL pick tonight, really like the Texans, -3.5. Probably going to take a money line as well to hedge a little bit. And you have that close loss insurance on the FanDuel. Don't forget to check that out. Maybe I should be sponsored by them. That's my next sponsor. But really like the Texans. Think they're in a bounce back spot. Trying to go 2-0 here tonight. Colts without Marlon Mack. Pearson without Marlon Mack. Go Texans. Boys, enjoy the week. Playoffs are coming up. Enjoy. We'll have a Thanksgiving episode next week. A little turkey. Take care, boys. Good luck. Commish out.